Coming up on BCN today, Iran makes arrests for the missile strike that brought down a jetliner. Plus, extreme cold warnings are in effect as Old Man Winter has his grip on the prairies once again. And police need your help locating a missing Lethbridge man.
Your Canada. Your Southern Alberta. Your stories. From our studios in the heart of Lethbridge, it's BCN Today with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, thank you for joining us. Lethbridge police need our help finding a 20-year-old man. Ryan Clark was last seen on the morning of January 9th, and his family is concerned for his safety. He's described as Caucasian, 5'9", 150 pounds, light brown hair and brown eyes. He was last seen walking in North Lethbridge wearing black jeans, a black or gray winter coat, a dark shirt, and black boots. If you've seen him or have any information on his whereabouts, please call Lethbridge Police at 403-328-4444. Iran has announced arrests have been made in their investigation in the accidental missile strike that downed a Ukrainian International Airlines jet last week, killing all 176 people on board, including 57 Canadians. The number of suspects has not been released. The announcement comes shortly after President Hassan Rouhani called for a special court to be set up to start an investigation, saying the world is watching. Rouhani called for an independent judge and dozens of witnesses. Meanwhile, 2 Canadian investigators are in Iran to get their first look at the crash site outside of Tehran. Other investigators from the Transportation Safety Board and several Canadian consular officials are on their way to the region as well, after Foreign Affairs Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne tweeted yesterday that Iran has approved all the needed visas. Of the 176 passengers killed, 138 were bound for Canada. A businessman in Toronto is spearheading a fundraising campaign to help those who lost loved ones in the Iran plane crash. The founder of Paramount Fine Foods, Mohammed Faki, says that he would like to raise around $1.5 million to help cover funeral costs for the victims.
I'm calling on all of us Canadians in this moment of need, including, importantly, corporate leaders and businesses across the country, to support these families with the unexpected expenses that have tragically fallen upon them. I know that this community, the Iranian community, and a lot of communities are sometimes very proud to accept, especially financial help. But you're not accepting any help from strangers. We are one family, one big family, a Canadian family.
The campaign, dubbed Canada Strong, will be overseen by a charitable fund that also raised money for the victims of the Toronto van attack. Southern Albertans started our week with some frigid temperatures. Extreme cold warnings were in effect for much of Western Canada. Environment Canada says a multi-day episode of cold wind chills continues in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and many parts of BC and the Yukon. Officials say some areas will see wind chills values near minus 40 in the southern region and as cold as minus 50 up north. The frigid temperatures are expected to last throughout the week. And with sub-zero temperatures, the risk of frostbite increases. Paramedics often see increased calls when the weather gets this cold, especially from those most vulnerable, including seniors and children. There are ways that you can protect yourself from getting frostbite. According to medical professionals, you should limit the time you are outdoors, dress in several layers of loose, warm clothing, wear mittens rather than gloves. Also wear warm socks and sock liners that provide insulation. Be sure to watch for the warnings of frostbite, which may include a prickly feeling, numbness, also red, white, or bluish white skin, or even hard, waxy looking skin. Watch for clumsiness due to joint and muscle stiffness, and in severe cases, blistering after rewarming. More information on how to treat frostbite can be found on the Alberta Health Services website. Lethbridge City Council has appointed an interim city manager. Jody Melly takes over from Bram Strain, who resigned due to personal reasons. His last day was yesterday. Melly has more than 35 years of experience in municipal government. She will serve as interim city manager until council announces a permanent replacement in late spring or early summer of this year.
I'm quite honored that City Council has confidence in me that I can take on this role. It is pretty significant, and I'm happy that they've chosen me. Very familiar with the workings of the organization, very familiar with some of the challenges that we face, and so looking forward to keeping things moving in the right direction.
Lethbridge City Council has agreed to beef up security at the public library. Its main branch at the main branch downtown. The library asked for $90,000 this year, and next for enhanced security. Councilors voted a unanimous yes.
With the addition of our security model, our new security model, so we've always had security, and we've really looked at how that security works, what they do in the library, their procedures, and what we see is an ability to deal with concerns as they arise by adding the security. Again, the public library is open to everybody. There's always going to be a diverse clientele in the library, and but we do have standards of behavior. So those guards are really there to ensure that those standards of behavior are upheld, and again, allow us to deal with incidents as they arise.
Lethbridge police have charged a Calgary man with drug trafficking and seized more than $50,000 worth of drugs. Police say the bust occurred on January 11th when they responded to a report of a break and enter at a North Side home around 1 a.m. 23-year-old Alexander Timothy Kulak faces a wide range of charges, including drug trafficking, possession of stolen property, carrying a concealed weapon, and resisting a peace officer. Kulak will appear in court on Thursday. Police arrested one person and were still seeking two others last night following a jewelry store robbery at an Edmonton mall. Investigators confirm that one of the suspects at the store in Southgate Centre deployed a noxious spray during the robbery. A witness says he was in the nearby Apple store when he saw three masked men at the nearby store, noting that they used the butt ends of guns to break the store's display cases. Customers in the Apple store were quickly ushered into a supply room where they remained until police told them to exit through a back entrance. An Edmonton man has pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the death of his roommate when the two lived in Calgary more than 20 years ago. Daniel Boyces, also known as Daniel Morgan Turner, was killed in 1996 when he was 22. And while investigators suspected he was murdered, his body was never found. Randolph Westman was charged in 2018 with second-degree murder and committing an indignity to a dead body after a review of the case led to new information. Westman's attorney, Darren Mahoney, says his client entered a guilty plea to the lesser charge of manslaughter. Mounties have established a control checkpoint on a road leading to a disputed work site of a natural gas pipeline in northwestern BC. They say the purpose of the checkpoint is to reduce safety concerns related to the discovery of fallen trees, piles of tires, and jugs of accelerants along the road. The Coastal GasLink project is the subject of a court injunction against demonstrators who support the hereditary chiefs of the Wet'suwet'en First Nation. BC Premier John Horgan says the project has received approval from 20 First Nations along the pipeline route, but hereditary chiefs from the First Nation near Smithers say the project does not have their consent. Horgan says the pipeline, which is part of LNG Canada's $40 billion liquefied natural gas export terminal project, has been granted approval by the courts and the rule of law applies.
We all remember how we felt as individuals and as British Columbians to see armed peace officers confronting British Columbians and their associates and their friends. We don't want to see that again, but we also want to have everyone understand that there are agreements from the Peace Country to Kitimat with Indigenous communities that want to see economic activity and prosperity take place. All of the permits are in place for this project to proceed. It will be proceeding. All of the other issues that the Wet'suwet'en want to talk about are very much at play, and we continue to work on a weekly basis with the Wet'suwet'en leadership to realize benefits for everyone in the region. This project is proceeding, and the rule of law needs to prevail in British Columbia. And the courts have consistently, going back to Delgamuukw and before, consistently sided with Indigenous peoples when their rights and their title have been abused by governments or by industry. In this instance, the courts have confirmed that this project can proceed and it will proceed.
The United States is removing nearly 24 Saudi military students from a training program and sending them back to Saudi Arabia after an investigation into a deadly shooting by a Saudi aviation student last month.
This was an act of terrorism. The evidence shows that the shooter was motivated by jihadist ideology. During the course of the investigation, we learned that the shooter posted a message on September 11th of this year stating, "The countdown has begun." During the Thanksgiving weekend, he then visited the 9/11 memorial in New York City. While there is no evidence of assistance or pre-knowledge of the attack by other members of the Saudi military or any other foreign nationals who were training in the United States, we did learn of derogatory material possessed by 21 members of the Saudi military who were training in the United States. 17 had social media containing some jihadi or anti-American content. 15 individuals, including some of the 17 I just mentioned, so there is overlap, had some kind of contact with child pornography. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia determined that this material demonstrated conduct unbecoming an officer in the Royal Saudi Air Force and in the Royal Navy. And the 21 cadets have been disenrolled from their training curriculum in the U.S. military and will be returning to Saudi Arabia later today.
Well, we have an extreme cold warning in effect. We'll tell you how long this cold snap will stick around. A full look at weather is coming up right after the break. Stay with us. And welcome back. Here's a look at our weather highlights for today in Lethbridge. We are having some light flurries this morning that will be tapering off this afternoon. The high today is -23, the low overnight -31, so make sure you plug in those cars. Tomorrow, not much better. We're going to see a high of -24, but a mix of sun and cloud. And looking ahead to the 5-day forecast, Thursdays, we're going to see the brunt of it on Thursday. -28 is the high only, and the low -29. So we're probably going to hit that mark. Friday's high -23, Saturday -9, and then look at that. We're going to get into some plus temperatures over the weekend there with a +3 on Sunday and climbing all the way up to 11 for Monday. Looking ahead to the almanac there, they tell us that the average temperature this time of year, the average high should be around -2, the average low around -14. We're obviously hitting way lower than that. Record high on this date was 12 degrees. It was in 1942, and the record low was in 1950. It was -41. The sun rose this morning at 8:24 a.m. It will be setting this afternoon at 4:57 p.m., giving us exactly 2 minutes longer of daylight today than what we had yesterday. So that means summer's coming. Hooray. Victoria's high today -2. Vancouver's high is -5. They're going to be seeing some flurries. Sunshine up into Edmonton today, high of -29, and -25 is the high expected in Calgary today. They're looking at some flurries as well there. Saskatoon, they're going to see one of those crisp, sunny days. -27 is the high, -26 is expected in Regina. Winnipeg will see some flurries today, and their high will be -14. Looking over to Toronto, we'll see a plus temperature there with 3 degrees. Snow is expected, though, as well as in Ottawa and Montreal today. Flurries expected, highs of -6 and -7 for those cities. Atlantic Canada, some places not getting too much reprieve from all the snow. Charlottetown's high -6. Halifax will see a nice 0-degree day today. Fredericton's high -6, but no snow, mix of sun and cloud. And St. John, Newfoundland will see a high of -8, and they could expect some flurries today as well. That's your forecast. Here's a look at what's happening in your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. The Troyanda Ukrainian Dance Club is celebrating Ukrainian New Year's Saturday, January 18th at the German Canadian Club. The festivities will feature a special performance by the Troyanda Dance Club, followed by a Ukrainian dinner with pierogies, sausage, cabbage rolls, and more. Plus, live music by Ukrainian band Absolute. The evening also includes a silent auction, raffles, games, and a midnight lunch. Tickets are $55 and can be purchased by calling Donna at 403-315-3492. Lethbridge Legal Guidance is a nonprofit society offering free legal advice to low-income Southern Albertans. It holds clinics on Tuesdays from 5 to 7 p.m. by appointment only. Some of the areas the society assists in include family, criminal, traffic, immigration, EI, and other issues. For more information, call 403-380-6338 or email Lethbridge Legal Guidance at telus.net. Easy Does It is an Al-Anon support group for adult children of alcoholics. Get an opportunity to share about your experiences with those who understand and learn healthy coping skills for your relationships. This group meets Thursdays at 7 p.m. at the Church of the Good Shepherd. For details, call Judy at 403-329-0661. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
Officials in Australia's New South Wales say they've been delivering thousands of kilograms of carrots and sweet potatoes to the endangered wallabies in the wildfire-stricken regions of the country. The veggies were being dropped to help the endangered brush-tailed rock wallaby in the national park, which lost a lot of its food source with the recent fires. And look at him there. Isn't that so sweet? Probably getting his first meal in who knows how long. A small tornado tossed cars around outside a South Carolina high school on Monday. The National Weather Service said school officials in Sampson County, North Carolina, say a storm caved in part of a school roof, injuring 3 students.
What a blessing it is that only 3 students were injured and that those 3 students are going to be okay. We can fix this building, but students are our priority, and we're very blessed that they're okay.
And check this out. Police in Georgia have released a body camera video showing the moment an officer was hit by a train while on duty. Polk County officer Andy Anderson suffered a concussion and broke several bones, but is expected to make a full recovery. The police chief said Anderson was so focused on catching the suspect that he didn't realize how close he was to the train track. 7 years after Christian Dr. Rebecca Brettel launched the Neighborhood Prayer Network, many lives have been impacted through the initiative. Believers pray for every street in the United Kingdom at a time when many Britons are dealing with depression and anxiety. The movement is seeking to turn the country toward Christ through action and prayer.
In September 2012, Christian doctor Rebecca Brettel took to the main stage at the National Day of Prayer and Worship at London's Wembley Stadium to share a vision God had given her as a child to launch the Neighbourhood Prayer Network.
We want to see every single street in the whole of the UK covered in Christian prayer, and we want to see people taking responsibility for where they live, praying for their neighbours, caring for their neighbours, and sharing the gospel with their neighbours. Can you imagine how our nation would change if everybody, even in this room, just did that?
7 years later, countless lives have been transformed through this initiative, and thousands of UK streets are now covered in prayer. Speaking at a recent event at Lambeth Palace to celebrate this 7-year milestone, Rebecca explained more about the practicalities of this initiative.
We ask people to pray for their immediate neighbour on their left and on their right and across the way. So that's 3 houses or 3 families. We ask people to prayer walk their street as they're walking up and down their street. But we also hope that as time goes on that people will start to get to know their neighbours, So through the year, we give people different suggestions.
Rebecca's husband Carl, CEO of the Neighbourhood Prayer Network, gives one example of how one of their prayer practitioners literally helped save the life of one of their neighbours.
She had a vision from God of her neighbour that they'd recently met, who'd been living together next door to each other almost for years, but that morning she saw in a vision him laying on the floor. So she immediately went around and to check if he was okay, and he said, yes, I'm fine. Invited him around for food that evening, and he didn't arrive. So very quickly she remembered what she'd seen in the vision that morning and rushed over to the house, and true enough, he was laying on the floor with a stroke. The doctors then said if she hadn't have come at that moment, he probably would have died. He made a full recovery, by the way.
There are many people in our country who love our healthcare system and want to leave it just as it is. There are others, however, that believe that we should also have private healthcare to help alleviate wait times. You can include Derek Fromm in that group. Derek is a lawyer with the Constitution Foundation. He says private healthcare should be a fundamental right of all Canadians.
Access to a waiting list is not access to healthcare. And it's a very important distinction. Just because the government has surgical facilities and can do the surgical procedures for you in their facility doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it in a timely and effective way that will preserve your health. And if your health is at risk and you're suffering, it becomes a constitutional violation when the government doesn't allow you to solve your own medical problems.
Catch the full interview with Derek from the Constitution Foundation discussing private versus public health care. That's coming up in the second half of our show following this short break. Stay with us.